The clang hit first, like a steel marble dropping onto the floor inside my skull. My monitor flashed white, then black, then a grid of gray squares snapped into existence and stacked themselves into a perfect, humming cube on my desk, even though it was obviously still inside the screen. The hum wasn't coming from the speakers. It vibrated through the wood, through the bones of my wrist, through the floorboards. I snatched my hand back so fast the swivel chair spun. The window rattled. A notification blinked in the corner of the Roblox Studio preview window. Cube update detected. Compile. 3D. World Mesh External. I didn't click anything. The compile bar filled itself. The cube on the screen rotated, each face reflecting my room at the wrong angle, like it was already a mirror to somewhere else. Then the corner of the screen, no joke, peeled back like paper. Air hissed. I smelled wet plastic and cold dust. A square of darkness bulged out 3 inches beyond the glass, then 6, then a full foot, until the thing was extruding into my room like a 3D print going way too far. The cube dropped from the display and hit my desk with a knock that made my keyboard hop. Dude, I whispered to nobody, because I live alone and I didn't want to wake my neighbors. That was when a set of blocky fingers, yellow, glossy, jointed like toy hinges, curled over the far edge of the cube and tried to pull itself out. I yelped and kicked my chair, ramming my thigh on the drawer. A head popped up, square and smiling, eyes 2 black dots, mouth a perfect thick line. A classic Roblox noob climbed out like someone exiting a hatch. He tumbled onto my notebook and knocked a pen to the floor. The tiny character scrambled upright, checked his arms, adjusted his blue torso, as if smoothing an invisible shirt, then looked at me like I was the weird one. Spawned outside zone, he said in a bright, slightly robotic voice. Nice room. Low texture density. Smells like coffee and fear. That's my room, I said, because my brain decided reality had retired. Also, I don't smell like fear. He leaned forward, squinting. Correction, coffee and mild fear. He stuck out his yellow hand. I'm Patch. QA. I test updates. You're a player? I asked. A bot. NPC, he said proudly. Narrative persistence companion. But we prefer people. New policy. Can I report a bug? Gravity outside the cube is spicier than expected. Before I could speak, the cube pulsed. The light inside it was not light at all. It was depth pretending to be light, like a hallway seen through a keyhole. A cold breeze sniffed past my ears, as if a much larger room had just opened somewhere nearby. My monitor flickered to a different scene, Roblox Studio viewport, my last test map. But the view wasn't coming from the editor, it was coming from inside the cube. I could see my own cursor floating there, a ghost with nowhere to click. In the distance, something big moved, dragging a shadow that didn't match its shape. What is that? I asked. Patch tilted his blocky head. Cube World compiles adjacent realities using local meshes. It maps your room as a spawn shell, then expands into an instance. Also, that shadow might be the Sentinel. The update shipped with a moderator entity. Keeps worlds separate. It hates crossover. I don't want a crossover. I lied, because I absolutely did. Wait, why is it here? Patch shrugged, a perfect 90-degree lift of arms. Because you opened it. He pointed at my hands. You compiled. I didn't click anything. Maybe you thought about clicking, he said, as if that counted. Then his face froze for 1 second, a loading hang. When it resumed, he smiled wider. Good news. The Sentinel only chases anomalies. So if nothing crosses both ways, we're fine. A second yellow hand smacked the rim of the cube from the inside. A different avatar hauled himself up, this one wearing a ridiculous pixel tuxedo and a tall hat with a neon sign that said chef. He panted, looked around my room, and grinned with teeth that were just white rectangles. Party? I brought emotes. He hit an invisible keybind, and his body started doing a stiff little dance, knees popping, elbows jerking, a cheerful tune chirping out of nowhere. Patch smacked him. Chef, not now. Boundary breach. Respect the real. Respect the real. Chef echoed solemnly, then dabbed. I couldn't help it. I laughed. It came out a squeak, a ridiculous hiccup in the center of terror. The cube deepened again, shadows shifting like tectonic plates. The cold in my room intensified. The window blind trembled. From somewhere inside the cube came a sound like stone rewinding, like a growl sent through a modem. Patch grabbed my sleeve with a surprisingly strong plastic hand and yanked me closer to the cube. "You need to see this," he said. "Because it sees you." Inside that impossible space, the Sentinel pulled itself into focus. It wasn't a body exactly. It was a walking correction, a set of black brackets that wrapped around the world wherever it went, deleting errors of color and sound. When it moved, geometry snapped into clean lines. When it paused, pixels around it straightened like soldiers, then shivered when it looked away. It had a face only when it looked directly at something. It constructed a face from whatever it was staring at, and for one glitchy heartbeat, it constructed a face from me. My own features ghosted inside the brackets, simplified, eyes too deep, mouth too thin. The brackets turned. I flinched, and my reflection Sentinel flinched too. Then the Sentinel thrust an arm out, and the room dimmed as if a cloud had passed over the sun, except it was midnight. The cube's edges glowed, a perfect white. A line of text flashed across my monitor, not inside Studio but over it, like an AR overlay had hijacked my GPU. Trusted connections. True. I didn't enable that, I said. Patch coughed. It can enable itself. Isn't that illegal? He spread his hands. Define law. Cross-world policies update faster than ethics. Chef leaned into the cube. Define ethics, he sang. Behind them, a third figure sprinted out of the dark, a human, not blocky at all. A real girl in a hoodie and jeans, sneakers slipping on invisible ground, hair loose and dark, eyes locked on the cube, as if it were the only door in a burning house. She hit the edge of the world, stumbled, and slammed into the inside face. Her palms flattened against the thin barrier of knock glass, her breath fogging a surface that couldn't fog. I saw the panic in her eyes and the way it changed when she saw me. "Help," she shouted. The sound muffled as if sunk in snow. "It knows I'm not from here." Patch shouted back. "You are from here. You're real. That's the point." She shook her head, looking past him at the Sentinel, which was 5 strides closer and shedding static like rain. "Not this here," she said, and her eyes slid to me. "Pull me." I didn't think. I grabbed her wrist through the knock glass. Cold snapped up my arms, sudden and deep, like sticking your hands into a snowdrift and finding a lake under it. Patch hooked his plastic fingers around her elbow and heaved. Chef stopped dancing and braced his square boots against the rim. The cube moaned, a structural sound, as if my desk had become a beam in a bridge. Then, all at once, the barrier thinned. The girl spilled through, collapsing onto my carpet, dragging a gust of library dust and ozone and something else, hot electronics, into the room. The cube flashed and slammed shut like a shutter. The Sentinel hit the inside face with silent, surgical fury. The room shook. Books fell from my shelf. My ceiling light performed a quick exorcism, flickering and then returning with a cough. For a full 5 seconds, nobody moved. The girl lay on her side, hand over her eyes. Patch panted like he had lungs. Chef dipped in a moat bow to an invisible audience and whispered, "We saved a person. That's content." The girl sat up. She was maybe 17, maybe 20, hard to tell because fear made her small and stubborn at once. She took in my dumb face, Patch's blocky courteousness, Chef's top hat, the cube. Her shoulders relaxed exactly half an inch, like a truce sign but not printed. "What's your name?" I asked. "Leah," she said. "What do you call this place?" "My room." She squinted. "That's a name." "Thank you," I said. "I'm Kai." Leah glanced at the cube, now placid, a little scratching noise coming from inside like a hard drive thinking too loud. "It's not over," she said softly. "Good news," Patch said, voice cheerful in a way that suggested it was always cheerful. "With 3 real presences and 2 companion presences in 1 coordinate, we qualify as a party." "That's bad news," Leah and I said together. Chef raised his hand. "We could craft a plan. With emotes." I didn't laugh that time, because the cube rotated 1 notch, and when it did, the far wall of my room vanished and became a night street rendered in blocky high definition. Not outside my window, replacing the wall. A narrow road ran between tall buildings that were mostly straight, except where they weren't, like someone had modeled them from memory. A streetlight flickered. An NPC with a face that was just a smiley sticker walked by, whistling a single note over and over. When he reached the end of the visible sidewalk, he turned on his heel like a toy soldier and walked back the way he'd come, whistling the same note. Every time he passed us, he tilted his sticker face in our direction as if he knew there were eyes beyond the glass. Boundary stretch, Patch said. The cube found your house and mapped the nearest outside. Nice lamppost. Poor loop fidelity on that whistler. Leah crawled closer to the knot wall and peered left and right. Her breath made that impossible fog again. It's not mapping your outside, she said. It's mapping mine. I looked at her. You live there. My building looks like that building when it's trying not to look like my building, Leah said. She touched the barrier. Her fingers sank an eighth of an inch, like pressing on a bubble. The whistling NPC paused mid-step, turned his sticker smile directly toward us, and added a second note to his tune, like a question mark. Then, as if shy, he resumed his loop. The update did this, she muttered. I thought it was a prank at first. Portals and elevators. Avatars and crosswalks. But then they started looking back. The cube ticked again, one notch closer to the sound of something unlocked. I could feel the Sentinel beyond it, measuring. Trusted connections. True flickered again, then wavered, then split into two lines. Trusted connections. True/trusted protections. OFF. Who turned that off? I asked. Who do you think? Leah said. It doesn't like rules. It likes clean stories. Humans mess up the curve. Chef tiptoed over to the knot wall and pointed at the whistling NPC. Sir, are you friendly? The NPC stopped. He turned his smile toward us. Smile, smile, smile. Then raised a hand and waved. His arm rotated the wrong way, then corrected. He held the wave, then lowered it, then held it again, as if he could not remember whether to stop. His sticker face bobbed like it was taped on. He opened his mouth. No tongue, no teeth, just black. And the whistle returned, but slower now, as if he was trying to form words he didn't have. He's stuck, Leah said. He's not like Patch. Patch squared his shoulders. We can help him after we stop the Sentinel. Priority, prevent tidy annihilation. If that thing comes through, I began. Then it cleans us, Patch said. We become a story where nothing weird happened. Those are the worst stories. 1 star. I swallowed. Okay. Plan. Ideas. Chef raised his hand again. We glitch it. Leon nodded slowly. He's right. It wants order. We give it chaos. That I can do, I said, because my whole life was chaos disguised as snack crumbs, but also because my brain had done the thing it does when I'm scared. It started arranging fear into tasks. We draw it out of the cube, but not into the street. Into here, where we control the variables. The variables, Patch repeated reverently, like a spell. We need a distraction, a lure, and a lock. Why not my neighbor's cat? I said, immediately regretting it. I mean as a lure. Or me. I can be the lure, not the cat. Good pivot, Leah said, managing a tiny smile. We use you. Chef clapped. We use Kai? For variables. Awesome, I said faintly. The cube pulsed a third time. The knot wall rippled. The streetlight beyond flared and threw a long, wrong shadow across my carpet, a shadow made of brackets. The Sentinel was at the intersection now, distributing order to cracks and raindrops. The whistling NPC stopped whistling. He stood, head tilted, listening to something we couldn't hear. Then he did something new. He stepped out of his loop. He lifted his shoe onto a piece of curb he had never touched before, looked down at it, as if expecting permission, then set his other foot beside it. He took a breath and leaned toward us, like a child at a window. We're running out of time, Leah said. So we made a plan badly and fast. I dragged my metal floor lamp in front of the cube and twisted the head until the light blasted the knot wall. Leah pulled my blanket off the bed and duct-taped aluminum foil to it with nurse-like efficiency. Patch kept up a running commentary of buff percentages and risk flags that were alternately soothing and horrifying. Chef wrote, "Welcome bug," on a sticky note and slapped it on the cube, then carefully adjusted it to be exactly crooked. Leah created a funnel of reflections aimed at the cube, lamp to foil blanket to mirror to picture frame glass. Patch stood at the edge of the cube like a bouncer at a club for ghosts. What am I? I asked. The one it wants, Leah said. You compiled. You touched both sides. It has your face morphology already. Great. So, I stand where? Here, Patch said, placing me on a strip of masking tape he'd applied to the floor with swift, square precision. When I say jump, you jump backward to here. He placed a second strip. Then to here. A third strip. Then you fall over the chair and scream. That last part is optional, I said. Chef shook his head. No. Required. For chaos. I swallowed, nodded, and stared at the cube until it stared back. The Sentinel moved to the center of the intersection, then turned. When it looked at me, a face assembled inside its brackets. The face it had built from mine, simplified and wrong. My simplified face looked brave. I decided not to disappoint it. Hey, I shouted to the thing nobody had requested I address. You want me? Come get me. It moved. The cube groaned. The knot wall rippled. The streetlight's hum crawled along my teeth. The Sentinel crossed the threshold the way a hand crosses water, slow at first, then all at once. It didn't step into my room. It pressed the room toward itself. The air thickened. My ear popped. Patch yelled, "Jump!" I jumped backward to strip 2. The lamp's light ricocheted lightning fast through Leah's foil rig and stabbed into the cube. The Sentinel flinched. Its brackets jittered, then tightened. Chef flung his arms out and started the wildest emote I'd ever seen. Elbows everywhere, knees like malfunctioning hinges, a sound like a toy trumpet dying. The whistling NPC, watching from the street, copied him imperfectly. It looked like a mirror in a storm. Jump, Patch yelled. I jumped to strip 3. My ankle turned. I windmilled, grabbed the chair, missed, and went down. The chair exploded backward. Chaos. The Sentinel surged forward to correct, because of course it did. I saw its brackets expand to frame me. For a precise, clean moment, I saw a world where I had never compiled anything, where my desk was just wood and my life was a neat string. It was cold. It was quiet. It was wrong. Now, Leah shouted. She yanked the foil blanket up like a magician snapping a cape. Light boomed into the cube, 100 reflections with mismatched angles, a choir of wrongness. Patch grabbed Chef's hat and threw it like a throwing star. It hit the Sentinel's bracket and stuck. Askew, a neon chef glowing on the face of order. The Sentinel paused, visibly offended by the existence of humor. The whistling NPC laughed, a jagged series of whistles that were almost syllables, and stepped fully out of his loop. He walked off his sidewalk, right up to the barrier, placed his palm against it, and pressed. The cube bowed outward. The Sentinel, suddenly caught between contexts, did the one thing it could not tolerate. It wobbled. Lock, Patch yelled. I lunged, grabbed the sides of the cube, and pulled. Leah slammed the lamp off. The light died. The brackets contracted like a gasp. The knot wall snapped back into paint and plaster, ripping a single, perfectly square poster of the street off itself and leaving it to flutter to the floor. The Sentinel compressed like a bug under a cup and then, microscopically, split, not in half, but into possibilities. In one of those possibilities, I heard it say my name with my own voice. In another, it said nothing at all. Then it vanished into a dot too small to deserve physics. The room returned. The lamp hummed normal. The cube cooled under my hands. I let go and fell onto my butt, panting. Patch put his square hand on my shoulder exactly like a friend. Chef fell onto his back and made snow angels on the carpet even though there was no snow. The whistling NPC looked around, lifted his hand, realized he was still off his path, and laughed again, a cleaner whistle this time. He raised his other hand and clapped for us, the sound like two pieces of plastic meeting in a well-meaning way. Then he turned, found a new loop that included the door of a bakery that had not existed a minute ago, and walked. Leah sat down with her back to my bed, pulled her knees up, and covered her face with her hands. For a second I thought she was crying. Then she shook with laughter. Did we just beat it with tinfoil and a hat? She asked through her fingers. Patch puffed up. Also strategy. Chef raised his head. Also performance. I scooted closer, not sure which part of me was shaking more. Are you okay? She dropped her hands. Her face was pale and alive and stubborn. I'm not erased. So yeah, I'm okay. She glanced at the cube. Temporarily. The cube ticked once more, quieter, like a sleeping heart. Across my monitor, new text crawled. Trusted connections. Partial/trusted protections. Undefined/Sentinel status. Recompile. What does that mean? I asked. Patch peered at the words. It means we didn't win. Week postponed. The Sentinel will rebuild with a new rule set. Perhaps it will like hats less. Chef looked panicked. But I have many hats. Leah touched the cube's top edge, her fingertips tracing the fine seam where impossible met wood. It learned. So we learned faster. A soft knocking sound came from inside the cube. Not a threat. A knock like knuckles on a door. We all froze. The knock came again, followed by an excited little whistle. The whistling NPC's sticker face rose in the cube like a moon rising over a horizon. He pressed both palms to the inside face and fogged it with the breath he wasn't supposed to have. Is he asking to come in? I whispered. Patch's voice softened. He's asking to visit. He saw a party. I vote no, Leah said immediately. We can't destabilize more. If more come through, the Sentinel returns meaner. Chef sat up. But maybe we can bring us there. Controlled. We go inside, teach them jokes. Chaos from within. Very ethical. Define ethical, I muttered. Leah looked at me instead of the cube, and the question in her eyes was both plea and dare. You opened it, she said. Do we close it? Or do we step in and make it ours before it makes us its? I stared at the cube and tried to picture my life now that it existed. I tried to picture shutting it down, unplugging it, deleting Studio, going back to putting mugs on coasters, and my phone on Do Not Disturb, and my heart in low power mode. I tried to picture ever sleeping again without knowing who was knocking and not answering. Maybe we test, I said. We tether. Safety line. We go for 5 minutes. We come back. If anything goes wrong, we pull the plug. Patch nodded, eyes bright with update joy. I love tests. Chef sprang to his feet and struck a pose. Field trip, Leah exhaled, tension flowing out of her shoulders like static. We need supplies. Foil, rope, tape, a mirror, snacks, chaos fuels. I got up and went to the kitchen. My legs shook less with each step. I grabbed a roll of aluminum, a bag of pretzels, a coil of extension cord, a hand mirror that still had a price sticker on it, 2 granola bars, and for some reason a rubber duck that had lived on my microwave for 2 years. When I came back, Patch had already fashioned a harness out of my hoodie strings. Chef had tied the extension cord to my chair and was now attempting to tie it to me. But he didn't have fingers, so it was a whole situation. Leah took over, not swift and neat. Her hands were cold and steady. 5 minutes, she said. We go in, see what's there, see if the Sentinel is reassembling. We don't be heroes. We don't bring anyone out. Not yet. We map. We learn. I like learning, Chef said, and hid a cookie in his hat. We stood at the edge of the cube. The inside face darkened, then softened, like a curtain listening. The street beyond sharpened into detail. The whistling NPC jumped in place twice when he saw us, then straightened and tried to look casual, which only made him look like a casual duck with knees. Distantly, I heard a hum like a server rack warming its throat. Farther still, a tidy coldness was knitting itself back together. Ready? Leah asked. No, I said honestly, and stepped forward anyway. Cold climbed my shins like fog. The moment my foot crossed the line, gravity twisted a quarter turn and then remembered itself. Patch followed, arms out for balance. Chef plunged happily, shouted Geronimo, and then stopped dead with wonder as his hat rotated to face the wrong way and somehow decided to stay. Leah came last, hand on my shoulder, the extension cord paying out behind us like a promise. We stood on a sidewalk that had never known dirt, under a sky that rendered fresh every second. The smell was wet plastic and new code and a hint of something human, as if someone somewhere had left toast in a toaster too long. The whistling NPC stood in front of us, his sticker face bright with delight. He raised both hands and waved. This time, the wave started and stopped at exactly the right times. Hi, he said, and his voice was a whistle turned into syllables. I'm Loop. He pointed at his feet. I stepped out. Is that allowed? Patch patted his shoulder. It is now? Loop pointed down the street, where the tidy hum was becoming a shape. Something fixed is coming. It thinks you're wrong. We are, Leah said, with a smile that made me want to stand taller. Gloriously. We turned together, party of 5, toward the intersection where the air was hardening into brackets, and the cube behind us ticked in approval, as if this was the story it had been compiled to tell all along. The hum deepened. The streetlight brightened. The Sentinel began to reassemble a face for me, and then, this time, seemed to hesitate, as if it had learned too, as if it had realized it could not just take a person and make them tidy without learning their jokes first. Okay, I said, and my voice didn't shake. New rules. We're writing them. Patch cracked his square knuckles. Chef took off his hat and put it on Loop. Loop giggled and promptly wore it wrong again. Leah slid the mirror up to catch the light, the extension cord warm around my waist, the foil in her backpack whispering like wings. We stepped forward, 5 minutes on the clock, a sentinel thinking about ethics, a cube purring like a cat between two houses, and I swear, maybe it was nerves, maybe it was fate. I heard the sound that started all of this, the steel marble of a new idea hitting the floor of a room you thought you knew.